In this video, I'm showing you what AI can actually do in 2026 and beyond, and why people who master these capabilities are building entire businesses around them. When you first learn to drive, you focus on steering, accelerator, brake, possibly clutch and gears if you have a manual car. But modern cars have reverse parking sensors, GPS, voice commands, climate control, adaptive cruise control. You don't learn all of those features on day one, or you'd be completely overwhelmed. And you certainly don't use them at the same time. But you should know that they exist so you can use them when needed. And AI is the same. Most people start with AI chat, text in, text out. That's like knowing how to steer, but not knowing your car has a GPS. AI has image generation, video creation, voice conversations, file analysis, code execution, web browsing. And today I'm going to show you the full dashboard. I'll then explain why text is actually the foundation for absolutely everything and why that matters. If you want to keep up to date with the latest AI topics, trends, and education, then subscribe to this channel. If you want even more, there's a link in the description below this video to an entirely free school community with over 600 active members who are finding new and novel ways to use AI to make money at the moment. Although text is the most important, I'm going to fairly quickly skip over it in this section, and then I'm going to come back to it in much more detail in future videos. However, text is how most people have met AI in ChatGPT, Copilot, or Gemini. It's text input, AI processes it, and text output. You can have conversations, give it questions, give it writing, ask it for explanations. But here's the thing. Text is the language of AI. Artificial intelligence's full name in what we're using is large language models. Language is right in the middle of it. So it's large because it has a huge body of information. Language because that's what it's working with every day. And every other capability I'm about to show you are all controlled by text, by words. So to generate an image, you describe it in text. To create code, you explain what you want in text. And to analyze a file, you would ask questions in text. Master text prompting. If you can master text prompting, that really does unlock absolutely everything else. And that's why clients pay premium rates for people who can communicate effectively with AI, because most people can't. Before I jump into all the different types, it's worth just noting here terminology. You may have already heard things like multimodality, multimodal, different modalities. All a modality basically means is all the different types and ways in which AI can work. So as we've just discussed here, you've got things like text is a modality, images another, video another, voice another. So it's just a different category, so different modalities. Now you know, if you hear the word modality, it just literally means different type of AI. First of all, images. AI can understand images and create them. It's in both directions. You can upload a photo, AI will describe it, analyze it, extract information. For example, if I use this photograph here and say, convert my handwriting to typed text, you'll see now that AI has done exactly that. Another example, if I take this photograph of a meal, looks pretty tasty, I just say, estimate the calories and macros in this food. Again, we can see we've got a load of information and AI is immediately telling us all the information. Now it's a guess, but it's much more accurate than the average human would be. Example 3, upload a chart or a graph. In this one, we can give it a load of information and we can then ask it what this chart is showing us. Notice with all 3 of these examples, I'm using text. I'm using natural language to ask it questions about the image. We can also create images. So we could say we want AI to generate a certain image, a certain picture. We could say a professional headshot of a business consultant in a modern office. And sure enough, we get some pretty good answers. Example 2, slightly more complex. A vintage 1950s travel poster for Mars, retro aesthetic. And to be fair, it's done a pretty good job. Example 3, editing existing images. We can say, change the background of this photo to a mountain landscape. And again, we get what we ask for. And if you think about that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10, 20, 50 years ago, it would have been impossible to even imagine that AI or anything could do this apart from a real live human with a camera with other live real subjects. But what does this mean? Well, it means generating marketing graphics without having to hire designers. Or if you're a freelancer, a new service you can now offer to your clients. You can get product mock-ups and prototypes, social media content creation very, very quickly. And you can test things, fail repeatedly. And it means the testing timeline can be massively compressed because you can try something out and you can immediately realize it's not working and then try something else and realize it's not working until you iterate, until you get to the successful point, which would have taken weeks, if not months previously with working with external agencies who have humans who have to do all the work, who take leave, who work during the day, don't work on the weekends. Now you can just run through that. You can speed run it very, very quickly and achieve it. The next modality is video. And AI really is coming for Hollywood. If you've seen some of the video generating capabilities now, you would be absolutely blown away. And I'm going to demonstrate some of it in this video. Now, I'll caveat that most of it's not my work, but I'm not an expert in making videos with or without it. But tools like Sora from OpenAI, Runway, Kling AI, Pika, and Google VO are all incredibly impressive. This tech is very new. It's only been out for 18 months, 12 months, but the advancement is incredibly fast. It's a very difficult skill to master, and those who have are going to be able to make the most incredible movies at a fraction of the cost and will be entirely enjoyable. For those people who say that they don't think it's right that AI should be able to generate videos, I would push back on that and say we've already had animations that have been created for years and years. People can enjoy an animation. Now they'll just be able to enjoy something that looks so real they don't know that it is just AI generated. So just to show you the abilities of AI video generation, without me being an expert, I've asked it to generate a golden retriever running through a field in slow motion, and it's doing the job. I've then said an aerial drone shot of a futuristic city at sunset, and again, I think it's a pretty good job. It could have been something out of a scene of Star Wars. And example 3 is a product demo. So I've taken the Apple Watch, I just took a photograph from Google, I put it into the system, and you can see here I've said professional product video of a smartwatch rotating, and it does a great job of it. You cannot tell that that is not a real video. However, with video in particular, but with all of AI, it's not perfect. Sometimes the physics looks weird and the hands are really tricky. Like sometimes you'll see like 5 fingers instead of 4 fingers and a thumb, and you kind of see all kinds of weird things. And it isn't perfect, but it's a bit like an artist, right? It's only going to get better and better. It only does short clips, so 10 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds is pretty normal. 20 seconds is probably the max. I have heard of some models doing 60 seconds, but they are super expensive. So generally speaking, at the moment, you're probably looking at having to clip a movie together in 10-second clips. If you've got a 2-hour movie, that's a lot of clips you need to pull together. So it can't do a complex narrative or multi-character scenes yet, but there are smart people who are basically recreating full scenes, breaking it down into tiny fragments, and then slowly but surely piecing it back together until they've got the full scene, and they look incredible. So it absolutely can be done, and that process will get easier. As AI improves, as prompting improves, as the models improve, we will see people making videos much faster, and this will again be an exponential increase in the speed and the ability to do this. So again, what can you do with video? Well, it's pretty obvious. You can make feature-length movies eventually, but for now, we've certainly got social media content, things like TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, particularly good for user-generated content. I've done a video about that previously. If you haven't seen that, the video's up there. And you can easily do product demonstrations, B-roll footage, create concept visualization for pictures, and background footage for videos as well. And here's what most people miss. Businesses are paying £500 plus for AI-powered video creation services right now. The supply is low and the demand is high, but you have to be good at it. If you are not good, you will not be able to sell this skill. You have to be able to demonstrate that you're adding real value to a business, and you have to make sure that you're charging less than the value that it brings to the business. As long as everyone gets fair value, people will continue to pay. But the key point I want to drive home here, even with video, is that again, it's text prompting which equals the video output. You need to master describing what you want, because then you can master AI video. In this next section, we're going to talk about audio and voice, because AI can both listen and speak. It's got 3 directions: speech recognition, speech generation, and conversation. Speech to text, first of all. So if I talk to AI, it transcribes and understands. So for example, now I'll switch over, do a quick voice demo. So here we've got an example of me. I'm just going to record my voice into QuickTime now using the QuickTime audio recorder. And what we'll do is we'll drop this file straight into 11 Labs to see whether or not we can just use the explicitly voice to text module. So now we can come into 11 Labs, we can drag and drop or upload the audio that we've just created, and you can see it's there, and we can click play. And you can probably just about hear that in the background. Primary language, detect, or we can just choose proactively English. It would detect English, it's fine. Tag audio events, doesn't really matter for this example, but you can do. Include subtitles, let's put that on as well. And there we go, upload the file. And that's clearly an example of how simple voice to text can be. So now we've done voice to text, let's do text to speech. All I've done here is I've just created a sentence. Once upon a time, there lived 3 bears in the woods, a mummy bear, a daddy bear, and a baby bear. And again, all we need to do is press the generate speech button here.
Once upon a time, there lived 3 bears in the woods. A mummy bear, a daddy bear, and a baby bear.
And it's as simple as that. Now, you've probably heard that voice before. That's Adam. That voice is very well known over social media. It's very common for people to use it, but a lot of people like it. A lot of people start listening to it. It's quite an authoritative voice. If you wanted something a little bit more British or a little bit more female, perhaps. You could choose something else and you could look through the library. If I go to, let's go to British. We've gone up here, we've chosen Amelia. Let's leave everything else as is. And then again, we'll generate speech.
Once upon a time, there lived 3 bears in the wood, a mummy bear, a daddy bear, and a baby bear.
And there you go. It's as quick as that and can sound incredibly realistic. And you could obviously have different parts of tracks for different voices. So you could have a conversation between 2 people, one character with one voice and one character with another. The options are absolutely endless here. And then finally, of course, you've got something like ChatGPT's latest model, where you can actually have a 2-way conversation. So it's voice to text and then text back to voice again, all done so quickly that it sounds completely natural. Give me an explainer about diabetes to someone that has no knowledge about the condition.
Absolutely. So let's break it down in a really simple way. Diabetes is basically a condition that affects how your body turns food into energy.
That's fantastic. So tell me a little bit more about type 2 diabetes. Is it possible that you can remove yourself from having type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive a bit deeper into type 2 diabetes.
And of course, you could go on there and continue, but you can see very clearly we've got complete natural conversation. It's picking up the conversation as a human would. And you'll notice it's quite similar to having a conversation with Siri or Alexa. But the difference is that OpenAI's ChatGPT has got all of the knowledge of the main ChatGPT behind it. Siri and Alexa definitely don't yet. And what does this unlock? Well, it unlocks hands-free AI while driving, cooking, or working out, accessibility for people with typing difficulties, or perhaps they're just not very good at texting, writing. You can create voiceovers for video presentations. You can transcribe meetings in interviews or lectures. You can have conversation practices by learning language. We've already seen that in apps like Duolingo, they're already integrating AI voice conversation practice, which is fantastic. We're going to see podcasts and audiobook creation without recording them yourself. So already this is possible. You can go onto 11 Labs, you can record some clips of your own voice, and you can then get AI to basically read in your voice. And so you can create a whole load of speaking notes and record a whole podcast without you ever having to actually say a word, upload it, and publish it. Now, at the moment, I don't think it's quite as good as the real thing. It's a little too robotic still, basically, but it is incredibly good. Especially if it's just for a short clip, it's almost impossible to tell whether it's real or not. I would say that voice AI agents are one of the hottest services in demand right now. Businesses really do want them because they are so much more realistic than a press 1 for sales, press 2 for finance robot. We're already seeing AI is able to not only answer questions and queries with voice, but it's also able to understand requests like booking meetings and appointments, changing times. We're able to create leads. We're able to then create follow-up flows such as SMS, emails. We're able to create actions in customer CRMs, all through AI being the orchestrator without needing a human in the middle of it. And this is happening 24/7, 365, multiple calls at the same time. The cost of doing that with humans is very difficult to even calculate depending on demand, but it could be well into the tens of thousands of pounds a month that it would cost you to staff that. However, there is a pattern here, and even with voice, although you're not typing, you're still asking questions or giving instructions in language. So text mastery still equals voice mastery. The next section is about files and documents, because AI really is the text workhorse. So in these examples, I'm going to upload PDFs, spreadsheets, documents, code files, because AI can read and analyze them all, which provides a real... First up example is to analyze a PDF. Here I'm uploading a 121-page PDF document from Apple. It is their end of year report, and I've said as the prompt, analyze this end of year report, give me the main points and identify anything you think could be an opportunity for an investor. And you can see here that it has thought about it for 1 minute and 7 seconds before then providing a distilled read. And it started off with some big headlines, and then it's gone into the subtext before giving us some bullet point answers. So top line growth is modest, but profitability actually improved. So that's the main thing to take away there as an investor. We're going in the right direction, I think. Further information about net sales, diluted EPS, and margins. Then it talks about where the money came from. So iPhone being over 50%. And again, the commentary here explains that. So half of total revenue. And it explains further about the given services. Again, by geography, it talks about the fact that the US, unsurprisingly, it makes up the of sales for Apple and has increased by 3%. But fastest growth market is actually Europe. As you can see here, 7% increase, and Greater China has gone down by 8%. So that could be very interesting and something to watch. And you get the point. We could read through all of this, and if this is something that we're interested in understanding, which obviously we would be if we put it in, it gives us some really interesting insights, and we can go further. we don't just have to stop with what it's given us here. We can then have a conversation in the chat box here. And as it offers here, it says, if you'd like, next steps we can take, translate into a simple investment thesis, build a quick table of segment and category trends to see exactly where growth and decline is concentrated. So it gives you some options there, but you don't have to go with what it says here. You can just respond, ask it a question as if it was a human on the other end of the text chat. Next up, I've uploaded a CSV file. This came free from Kaggle, so thank you to Kaggle. They provide lots of big training data sets, and I used one of their data sets. And this was e-commerce data, and what I've done is thrown it into the chat by using the plus button down here, and then I've said, analyze this data. First, give me a high-level overview of what it's about. Then pick our, and I've actually had a typo here, and I've said then pick our any interesting trends you notice. I meant to say pick out, but AI is pretty good and is fairly good. But AI is generally pretty good at spotting typos and ignoring them and continuing with the sentiment. And it's done so here. Here's what I'm seeing in your file. So it did think for 2 minutes and 38 seconds for this, so it was a little bit of time, but compared to a human, it was significantly faster. It's given us a high-level overview of the data in general, telling us about the key fields of the information, how many rows, invoices, customers, markets, etc. Then some interesting trends, so heavy UK concentration, 8 million versus non-UK was only 1.5. International markets were Netherlands, then Ireland, Germany, France, Australia. And again, recognizing this is just an example and you haven't seen the data set itself, the point is that AI is able to analyze big data sets really successfully, very, very quickly, and give you useful information. And further, if you have questions which arise from the initial results, that's where you get even more value. It's like asking your own personal analyst questions about the data that you have. And if you don't think you have any data, then I would suggest consider are you sure? Because actually you can download and export, because for example, you can export you can export data from many different places, including places like Amazon online, Shopify stores. If you have a business, the chances are Xero and Stripe and many other places will allow you to bulk extract your data, and then you can put it into ChatGPT like this. Next up, code review. What I've done here is I have asked, in a different ChatGPT window, I've asked ChatGPT to create me a very small script, a one-page bit of code which does something useful that I can then analyze. I didn't really give it a very detailed instruction because I specifically don't want to know what the code is and rather actually want to drop it into the chat and then ask it the questions. So over here, back in ChatGPT, you can see that I've just pressed the plus button here, and then the prompt that I used was review this code, tell me what it does, and identify any bugs, issues, or other notable observations. And straight 37 seconds, and it's now telling me it's a neat little vanilla JS to-do app. And it's quite right, it is indeed. And it renders a simple little to-do list, bugs, issues, and notable observations. It's given me some risks here, which if you're tech savvy, you'll understand. But again, as an end user, I'm not too worried about this. I just want to show you AI has the ability to review code from the most basic levels all the way through to extremely big, complex tasks. And that is something that we're going to come on to a lot later on in my future videos. That is something we're going to come on to much more in our future videos. And it even picks out things like minor user experience and accessibility considerations, performance and styling quirks. But at the end of the day, it's just a one-page script that I pulled together very quickly to demonstrate the ability for AI to analyze and assess. AI cannot just analyze code, but it can actually execute code as well. It can actually do things. Some AI can write code and run it to give you actual results. It doesn't just deliver some code to you, it actually can execute it and show you the results. So I've swapped over to Claude now, not for any other reason than I just wanted to share that there are different AI models out there. We're going to go into the full breakdown of different AI models in the next video that I'm going to do, so do follow for that video coming out shortly. I've given Claude a CSV file from Kaggle. I think it's from 2010. I think it's e-commerce from a UK e-commerce company. All I had to do was click the plus button down here to add the file, and you can see the file is now here at the top, data.csv. We can actually click through and we can actually look at the file that was created, and you can see here at the top you've got the invoice number, stock code, description, quantity, invoice data, unit price, customer ID and country. Now this was provided by an Excel spreadsheet, but if you are doing e-commerce or any sort of data heavy process, you will have the ability to export your data to probably a CSV comma separated variable file, and it will provide it in a way in which AI can read it very easily. However, it doesn't need to be a CSV, it can just be a standard Excel spreadsheet. What I would suggest is, though, only include the data that you want AI to focus on, and ideally just have one tab at the bottom. So don't have loads of different pages within your spreadsheet, just have the data that you're interested in analyzing. And again, you can see here that I have purposefully not given it a very complicated or detailed prompt. I just want people to get started and have a go at doing this. So my prompt is as simple as create some bar charts and pie charts to display this data to help my team visualize what's happened. And that's all I gave it. Purposefully, if you're more of a data analyst, you understand data better, of course you can give it a much better prompt. You can ask it for specific insights if you know what the information is about. But here, I don't even understand what this data is. I'm coming at this from first principles. I'm saying, I don't know what it is, explain it to me. And then you can see here that AI has started to give us its thought process, and it's examining the uploaded CSV, and then it's explaining that it's a retail e-commerce data set, analyzing it, and there's an encoding issue, the pound symbol. So it's even figured out there's an issue, and then it's going to figure out how to solve its own problem. So now it's got an understanding of the data, it started creating the dashboard, and then it said it's created 3 dashboards. And it's explained what the dashboards are. So dashboard view 1 is given revenue by top country, and then it's going on the revenue side of things. Dashboard 2 is performance analysis, and then it's talking about by day of the week, and the order size, and top 10 customers. And then dashboard 3 is time analysis, so by hour of day, revenue by time block in pie charts. And it's given us some key information, and it's given us some key information here about valued numbers that are useful for the team. And we can now click to download each of the 3 dashboards as images. We can download them all together, or we can click through and have a look at them. So all you have to do is just click. Obviously, we've got the first one already open here, and you can see the pie charts, the bar charts, and then we can choose a second, and now it's going to load instead. So you can see by day of week, immediately we can see Tuesday is the best day, followed by Thursday, with Sunday being the worst. Top 10 customers by revenue, so customer 1646, and of course we probably would understand who that is, and we'd be able to look at them, potentially market them, try and upsell them, or maybe just give them a VIP treatment to continue their work. Top 10 countries by units sold. Clearly the UK is a massive outlier there, so very much focused on the UK, but Netherlands is strong second, and it might be worth continuing to encourage customers in the Netherlands. We've clearly got a customer base there. Or if you wanted to look at the upcoming markets, perhaps we've just turned Switzerland on, you can see here that we are making some sales. And of course, this data you can go into as much detail as you want, but the AI has immediately given you something that's useful. You can drop into a presentation, PowerPoint charts, PowerPoint presentation. The immediate value, you can drop it into a PowerPoint presentation and be able to present back to your team or to your management. The example I'm going to give you is something which at the beginning of 2025 was quite tricky for AI to do, and already AI has completely bossed it now, and that is to do maths, or math if you're from the US. Traditionally, large language models, clues in the title, they were good at doing language, at words and vocabulary. They were not very good with doing mathematics. However, that has changed a lot. What AI development teams have identified is a way in which they can take the natural language that you might type. So for example, what's 3 times 7? They will then pass that to the model. The model will then interpret and understand that and will turn the question in language into code, run the code will then provide the answer, and then the answer will then be interpreted back to words so that the human can understand it. So let's jump in and do that now as an example. So I've said here, what would the compound interest be if I invested £10,000 today and then £300 every month for the next 10 years with an 8% annual interest rate? And AI is not only giving you an answer, but it's explaining how it's gotten to the answer. So the compound interest earned would be £30,503.61, and is actually a 66% return on what's been put in, which is pretty damn awesome, isn't it? Thanks, compound interest. And this is now starting to edge into why AI really is not just a helpful assistant that can answer your random questions or read emails for you and create drafts, but it can make game-changing results here. It's not just giving you instructions that you have to then go and follow. You don't have to copy code and run it yourself. AI can literally do it for you. And not only can it do it for you, but we're seeing models now where they are actually retraining themselves to improve their abilities and get things right more accurately. Next up, we've got web browsing. So AI can do research for you. And in this example, I just want to show you that we can use ChatGPT to search in the ChatGPT actual app itself. It's worth noting at this point that not all AI has this included. Some free tiers often don't include it, and some information is beyond paywalls that AI itself can't access because it would then have to pay as well. It's still really important that you need to verify important facts yourself using credible sources. and it is becoming more and more difficult to identify what a credible source is. So if, for example, we were interested in computer games and we were perhaps a journalist or a blogger or a vlogger and we wanted to research what the Game of the Year 2025 was, you can see that ChatGPT here has provided us with it as a suggestion. We've turned on this web search mode here by just clicking the blue button. So if it's not on, you can see it's grey, and then if it's on, it becomes blue and says search. And let's just try Game of the Year, and we'll just click it and see what happens. Now, obviously, if you are actually searching for something on the web, the chances are you have a better sense of the kind of thing that you're really looking for. What I would suggest is, if you can, go and try some different models in terms of web search. Perplexity is the one which I have found to be the best, but right now I just want to show you that even on ChatGPT you can get some information. So it looks to me like Claire Obscure Expedition 33, a game I've never heard of sadly, won the Game Awards in 2025, so it must be a good one. Go and check it out if you haven't. And other notable games are the ones below here: Donkey Kong Bonanza, Death Stranding 2 on the beach. And obviously we can then go into a bit more of an understanding why. We can ask it questions, ask it to delve into what makes it so good. Are there any drawbacks? What's the target audience? Any of those questions we can do to continue researching. As I say, just like with any research, I would definitely use multiple sources, and I would definitely fact verify, not just with other AI models, but also with the original source of information wherever possible. But why does research matter? Well, again, it saves a massive amount of time. It can get you up-to-date information beyond AI's training cutoff. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the term training cutoff, this is essentially the date when all information that the AI has stopped. So let's say, for example, that the current model of ChatGPT 5.1 has a training cutoff of January 2025. It will assume, unless you explain to it otherwise, that it is still January 2025. And if something happened in February, March, April of 25, it will not be aware of that situation happening. I think this is going to change quite shortly anyway, and I think what we're going to see is more dynamic AI updating consistently, so it will be retraining constantly and there will be no formal training cutoffs in the future. So we've talked about all the different modalities, the different types. We've seen images, videos, voice, files, code, web browsing. It's all really impressive. But as I've said throughout this video, what ties it all together is text, language. It is the universal interface, and every capability runs on text. Image uses describe what you want, video, type out the scene, voice, spoken language, which is essentially text, transcribed, files. Again, we need to use text, code, text, web, text. You get the point. If you can master text prompting, then you can access everything. Text AI is most mature, most reliable, and most widely applicable. It's not limiting, it's absolutely empowering. You'll use text AI 10 times more than any other modality. And why does this matter? Well, while everyone else is still figuring out the basic ChatGPT, you know the full toolkit here. You know what is available to you, to your business, and that makes you valuable. Businesses are desperate for people who understand this stuff and can implement it for them. Once you master the capabilities, you'll see the opportunities everywhere to help others. And that's the real unblock here. If you're keen to learn more about AI and potentially how to monetize it or to help your business, then join our free AI community. The link is in the description below this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video that I do.